limits are engineered. The speed of light is exactly 299,792,458 meters per second, not approximately, exactly. That number is so precise that in 1983, scientists stopped measuring the speed of light and started using it to define the meter instead. Think about what that means. The universe has a hard limit, a maximum speed, a ceiling that nothing, no matter, no energy, no information can break through. Now here's the question nobody asks in physics class. Why does the universe have a speed limit at all? In a truly infinite physical universe, there's no reason for one. Limits aren't natural. Limits are engineered. Unless the speed of light isn't a physical law, unless it's a processing constraint. In 2003, a philosopher at Oxford named Nick Bostrom published a paper that made physicists uncomfortable enough to ignore it for a decade. The argument was simple, almost insultingly simple. At some point, if civilization keeps advancing, someone will build a computer powerful enough to run a conscious reality. When that happens, and Bostrom's math suggests it's close to inevitable, the simulated minds will outnumber real ones by a ratio too large to usefully imagine. Which means, if simulated universes are possible, you're probably inside one right now. Not because of science fiction, because of statistics. That argument has been sitting in the peer-reviewed literature for over 20 years. It's not a thought experiment anymore. Serious physicists, not philosophers, not sci-fi writers, have spent careers trying to find the hole in it. Most of them stopped looking. What I want to show you today isn't Bostrom's philosophy. It's what the physics actually looks like when you take this seriously. When you play a video game, there's a render distance. Beyond a certain point, the game doesn't load the world. It waits until you're close enough to make it worth the processing power. The speed of light works the same way. Information in our universe cannot travel faster than 299,792,458 meters per second. Not because of some physical barrier. We've never found a wall. It's because that appears to be the maximum rate at which our universe can update itself. Physicist Tom Campbell spent 30 years building a model of consciousness and reality. His conclusion: the speed of light is the universe's data transfer rate, the frame rate, the clock speed. When he presented this at physics conferences, nobody had a strong counter-argument. They mostly said it was unfalsifiable. Here's the thing about unfalsifiable. So was the round Earth, before anyone could go high enough to see it. Go small enough in our universe, and you hit a floor. The Planck length, roughly 1.6 times 10 to the negative 35 meters, is the smallest meaningful unit of space. Below it, our physics doesn't just get complicated, it stops. Space itself stops being divisible. In any digital system, there's a minimum pixel size, a resolution limit. Below that threshold, the system has nothing to give you. The Planck length is our universe's pixel. Physicist John Wheeler called this it from bit, the idea that physical reality emerges from information, not the other way around. He spent decades on it. Before he died, he said he was convinced the universe is, at its foundation, digital. Wheeler wasn't a fringe figure. He coined the term black hole. He worked with Niels Bohr. He was one of the architects of modern physics. In 2015, theoretical physicist James Gates was studying the equations that describe the most fundamental particles in existence, the ones that make up everything you are, everything around you, everything that exists. Inside those equations, he found something that stopped him. Error-correcting codes. The same type used in browsers to make sure the data you receive matches what was sent. The kind of code that only exists in one context, when someone is trying to preserve the integrity of transmitted information. Gates said publicly, "If I'm interpreting this correctly, and I think I am, we might be inside a computer program." He wasn't speaking metaphorically. This one is harder to set aside because it's been run in labs thousands of times and the result doesn't change. Fire a single electron at a barrier with two slits. When nobody is measuring which slit it goes through, the electron goes through both, simultaneously. It exists as a wave of probability until the moment someone checks. The act of measurement collapses the wave. The electron picks a position. Reality, at the quantum level, isn't fixed until it's observed. Physicist John von Neumann spent years on this. His conclusion: consciousness isn't a product of physical reality. It might be the precondition for it. This isn't a minority view. It's called the Copenhagen interpretation, and it remains the most widely accepted model in quantum mechanics. The universe doesn't render what no one is looking at. Max Tegmark at MIT makes a different argument, but it lands in the same place. The universe isn't described by mathematics. It is mathematics. Physical reality is a mathematical structure, and we are self-aware patterns inside it. If that's right, if the universe is made of information at its core, then the question, who wrote the code, isn't philosophy, it's archaeology. Here's where it gets strange. While physicists have been arguing about this for decades, the oldest texts we have, written in clay, before the Greeks, before the Egyptians built their pyramids, describe something that sounds exactly like this. The Sumerians called the universe the Me, a set of divine tablets on which all of existence was written, rules governing every physical law, every living thing. The Me weren't described as metaphors. They were literal objects, information objects, held by the gods, capable of being stolen, copied, transferred. The Vedic tradition, predating modern Hinduism by thousands of years, called physical reality Maya, usually translated as illusion, but the Sanskrit root means something more specific, a constructed appearance, a projection. Plato, working from Egyptian sources he said went back 9,000 years before his time, described humans as prisoners watching shadows on a wall, mistaking projections for reality. 3 traditions, 3 separate millennia, the same model. What they were describing wasn't philosophy in the way we teach it now. These were people trying to explain, with the language available to them, something they understood at a technical level. The Sumerian word for the divine beings who wrote the Me translates, most directly, as those who came from above. The texts say they created humans as a labor force, engineered us from existing material, and when they left, or withdrew, they left behind the tablets, the record, the code. So take it together. A universe with a speed limit that functions like a data transfer rate, a minimum unit of space that functions like a pixel, fundamental equations that contain error-correcting code, the kind that only appears in designed systems, particles that don't settle into fixed positions until observed, and at its base, pure information. Bostrom's argument doesn't need you to believe any of this mystically. It's probability. If computation is possible, and we've proven it is, and if it scales, and it does, then simulated minds will eventually outnumber real ones by a ratio that makes the number of atoms in the universe look modest. The question stops being whether we're in a simulation. It becomes, what do we do with that? What does it mean for consciousness, for death, for memory, for every framework humans have built to explain what's happening here? Because if the universe is a structured information system, the texts that claim to describe its architecture aren't mythology, they're documentation. The oldest written records we have, pressed into clay in ancient Mesopotamia 6,000 years ago, don't just describe a simulation. They describe its architects. They give them names. They record their decisions. They document what they wanted from us, why they made us, and what they left behind. If the physics is pointing where it appears to be pointing, those records deserve a much closer read than they've been given. That's what this channel does. The tablets are the oldest data we have, and nobody is reading them carefully enough. If this is your first time here, good. You picked the right video to start with, because what we just covered is the frame. And the next video is where it gets uncomfortable. 12,000 years ago, something hit this planet. We know this now. The data exists. 12 civilizations wrote it down independently. The crater evidence is there. The ice core data is there. Official history just hasn't caught up yet. I'm not done with this. Follow the channel if you want to be here when it breaks open. The tablets don't lie.